We haven't seen this email before, and to me, it's like, why did Blake Lively's team want us to see this?
Yeah, we've lost some talk.
Hi, and welcome to Flawsome Talk. I'm Tashti Flaw, journalist, Hollywood truth teller, and your voice of reason in a town built on delusion. If you missed my episode yesterday, I spoke about how Blake Lively's team now is working overtime, trying to convince everyone that there's no songs on Taylor Swift's new album that's about Blake Lively. E! News and TMZ had stories that were so obviously planted by Blake Lively's team that it wasn't even funny. But as I said, People magazine is a little bit torn right now because they have been supporting Blake Lively against Justin Baldoni this entire time. But now, when Taylor Swift is in the mix, they're choosing sides and they're choosing Taylor Swift. So Taylor Swift's people reached out to People magazine. As you know, especially magazines like People have close connections in both camps, in all camps. They've been quoting Blake Lively's team. They've been quoting Justin Baldoni's team and Taylor Swift's team. And as I said yesterday, there is a quote in there saying that Taylor and Blake aren't speaking. That's obviously something coming from her camp, and they want it out there. They want people to know. Don't believe anything don't believe anything in TMZ or E! News because they are not on speaking terms. And Taylor Swift wants people to know that. There's one little more Easter egg from Taylor Swift that some people have pointed out. I don't know if this is any relevance, but she did say that her album is being released on October 3rd, which is known to be the Mean Girls Day. So in the film Mean Girls, there is a memorable scene where Candy Heron's crush, Aaron Samuels, asks her what day it is, and she says October 3rd. And this has become like a famous pop culture reference. So October 3rd is now known as the Mean Girls Day. So maybe that's another secret message to Blake Lively from Taylor Swift. Anyways, what I wanted to talk about today are all those new text messages and emails that were released on October 14th. Blake Lively's team filled up the docket with emails and text messages. There's so many that it's almost impossible to get through them all. And they did that to add evidence to Blake Lively's claim that there is a smear campaign and that there was SH going on that set. But what they did in reality is that they proved that none of that happened. What we can see from all the text messages is basically how Justin Baldoni got more and more desperate to defend himself against this attack by Blake Lively. There are even references from his team in the text when they communicate, referencing to what Blake Lively is doing against him is a smear campaign. So for them to try and convince people that Blake Lively is the victim here, again, it doesn't work. And there's one text here in particular, like, why did they add this text? I just don't understand how they're thinking sometimes, these lawyers. But this text specifically from Justin Baldoni, which is such a heartbreaking text message or email, how can they support Blake in any way? So this email was sent to a lot of people, not everyone that was involved in the movie, but it's kind of a cry for help from Justin Baldoni, asking people to pray for him. So this was sent on 2nd of January 2024, and Justin says, "Hi all, Happy New Year. I haven't seen Blake in person since his safety letter / accusation. You know, the 31 points or 30 points that she wanted him to sign. It ended up being 17 points that she blackmailed him to sign. And she said, if you don't sign this, I won't come back on set." So he was in a situation where either he could lose this project, lose this movie, lose everything, or he could sign that and she would come back on set and make his life a living hell, which she did. And he continues to say, feeling all sorts of things. She used the claim letter to gain power over the whole production, trying to find my balance of captaining a ship and leading it while it's being held hostage. At this point, Blake Lively had already started taking over everything, as we know. And he says how to give her most of what she wants while maintaining some of my own vision. And starting Friday, acting and working with this person who can and will use anything she can against me. It's all scary. Yet I know I have protection. Starting this thread again, I will need the emotional, spiritual support. Love you all. Oh, this is the email that Justin Baldoni sent to this team of people that he trusted. Yeah, so he says here that this is day 1 of 17. Can you imagine going to work feeling like he did at this point, having to deal with her and Ryan Reynolds at a daily basis? We haven't seen this email before. And to me, it's like, why did Blake Lively's team want us to see this? This is an email, this is a message from a desperate man who is forced into a corner by this woman who calls herself a victim. And at this point, so much has happened already. And he's just like, okay, I need your help. I need your prayers to get through this. This is where Justin Baldoni is at this time. I can't believe this is like 1.5 years ago. If he knew what she was about to do to him after this as well, I mean, I am. All this shows is that Blake Lively took over the production. She took over the movie, like he's been claiming this entire time. So why did Blake Lively's team want to include this message? I don't get it. What are they trying to do here? Are they trying to make her lose this case? Or are they just trying to say here that, oh, he knew about this letter and he calls it accusations and he signed it? Is that what they're trying to do? So saying like, look, he's guilty. I don't know. I just don't get it. Let me know if you understand why they actually put this in there as evidence for Blake. There's also a text chain here that's also like, why did they add this in there? So this is a text chain when they talks about how Ryan Reynolds rewrote the rooftop scene during the strike. So Justin Baldoni sends this to Melissa Nathan and Jennifer Abel, and he says, quickly, my partner Steve asked about flipping the narrative from this leak to leak this AM about Ryan saying script was a disaster and he saved the movie. So this was sent on August 15th of last year. When Blake Lively had gone on the red carpet and said that Ryan Reynolds wrote that scene, and the script writer Christy Hall didn't even know about it until she just like threw it out there on the red carpet. And some people started speculating if he actually wrote this scene, Ryan Reynolds wrote this scene during the strike, during the writer's strike, because as you know, that would be illegal and that would kick him out of Writers Guild of America. So Melissa is answering Justin saying, so actually it's working in our favor. PR looks the worst and continues to play into the narrative of them being awful. It's playing good for us, bad for them. Yes. So again, Blake Lively is trying to prove here that this is a smear campaign against them because they are defending themselves. Justin Baldoni is texting back here, suggesting what they could put out there, saying that something about Ryan claiming the female hired was feminist writer, didn't know how to tackle a female film, etc., using their own words against them. Yes, clever, Justin Baldoni. That's what we've been saying as well. Ryan Reynolds is all about supporting his wife and supporting women, blah, 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 and calling out Justin Baldoni for being a fake feminist. And here he is taking the script from a woman who wrote it and rewrote it because he knows better as a man. So yes, I think that was a great idea, Justin Baldoni. And he also says here, this is an easy flip. I agree. It was an easy flip, and it wasn't even a flip. It's true. Then Melissa Nathan says, but Tatiana Siegel from Variety wants to do a follow-up call with us for a story similar. And Justin Baldoni adds, and the fact that they saved the script from what they think is a disaster after we had a greenlit script and it was a strike basically implies they were scabs, which we should 100% lean them to, says Justin Baldoni. Yes, why shouldn't they lean them to that? You have to remember at this point, Baldoni and his team were being attacked by Blake Lively, who were planting stories about him. They planted that story on TMZ that I'll come back to a little later. And of course, he had to defend himself. And what he's saying here is just pointing them to the truth. And then Melissa says, I'm all over it. And Justin Baldoni says, it's a man coming in to say his female writer sucks and I need to save it. Let him drown in his own pool. Yes, I agree. Let him drown in his own pool. And then Justin adds, and doing it while it was a strike. And Melissa Nathan says, all over it, the strike. Uh, why does Blake Lively want this to be out there? This is something that they added. It's so dumb because they're just adding here that Ryan Reynolds broke the writer's strike. He is a scab, and they want that out there. I did see that Vulture actually picked up this story. They wrote about it. It says, "Ooh, oh, sometimes you have to stop putting in maximum effort because your union is on strike." It ends with us. Actor and director Justin Baldoni was unaware that his star Blake Lively's husband, Ryan Reynolds, was altering the script. ET confirmed on August 27. That's relevant because if Ryan Reynolds made these changes while the movie was filming during the WGA strike, the Writers Guild of America strike, that would have been against union guidelines. The WGA strike began on May 2nd, 2023 and ended on September 27, and the movie began filming 3 days after the strike began on May 5th. Reynolds' participation came to light in one of Lively's red carpet interviews. Then they point out here that Christy Hall, who wrote the screenplay, discussed the altered scenes with People on August 8th, saying, there were a few little flourishes that I did not write, but I assumed that they had been improvised on set. And they say, apparently Deadpool got her. Definitely. So Vulture says here that they actually reached out to the union, to Writers Guild of America, for comments, but they didn't comment. This is so interesting how Ryan Reynolds is getting away with everything. Why has no one reported him to WGA? Why is he still in there? It's such double standards here. And secondly, I hated that scene. That scene, I remember watching the movie in the theater because I went to a press screening before it came out. And I remember looking at Magnus, who sat next to me, and I was like, this is so bad. And I felt that scene was such a cliche and it was so badly written that I specifically remember how much I hated it. And that's maybe because Ryan Reynolds wrote it. He saved the movie with that horrific scene. I wonder how the original scene was, by the way. If we ever get to see Justin Baldoni's version of this film, that would be amazing. So Justin Baldoni keeps saying that there is no truce here. Someone should tell him, his team, that we are ready to fight if they keep leaking this shit. I mean, Danny G is going to be bad for them legal shit. I am ready, says Justin Baldoni. And Melissa says, our lawyer is prepped and ready. Yeah, and then there's a text at the bottom here, a long text from Jen Abel, who's trying to calm Justin Baldoni down and saying that the overall narrative is still very pro-Justin. I like Tatiana doing a large piece on how problematic Blake and Ryan's comments are to the unions. So yeah, this whole thing is just about how they are defending themselves against these attacks coming from Blake Lively, and nothing about burying her. It's about saving Justin. Then there's a discussion back and forth where they actually talk about Blake Lively and what she's doing as a smear campaign against Justin Baldoni. They already used the word back then against her. And they're talking about that story that hit TMZ that I've spoken about a few times before, where it says that she felt kissing scene lingered too long, feels he fat shamed her. A story that's obviously planted from Blake Lively's team. Why would anyone know that anything lingered for too long unless she told someone to tell TMZ that? She didn't tell anyone else that in any writing, so she doesn't even have evidence of that. So of course it came from her team. Although TMZ writes at the end here that we reached out to reps for Justin and Blake's for comments. So far, no word back. Well, you already got this entire story from her team. Why did you need a comment from them? Just pretending that they reached out to her team. Like you had her team on the phone right before you wrote this story. Anyways, in the text thread, they also bring up the HR complaint coming from Jenny, Slate, and Blake. So there's a text thread here with Katie Case, who used to work for Tag, and she says, seeing the newest TMZ attempt, do we start seeding he had to hire someone to protect him from the consistent attacks and smear campaign by Blake and her team? And then Melissa Nason says, let's find out if it's true first, as if it is. And then Katie says, we knew about the 2 complaints from Jenny and Blake, where the sexy comments. So what happened, as you know, Blake Lively was the one who actually introduced the word sexy on this set, talking about her outfits and a beanie she was wearing. And then Justin Baldoni at one point pointed out something from her wardrobe that would look more sexy for her character. And that's when she was like, oh my God, this is SH. I'm going to run to the HR department and say something, although she never filed anything about it because we haven't seen any complaints from her. But then there was these like fake HR complaints. Remember those? Someone planted and sent to content creators everywhere. And they were like, oh, there's 2 more witnesses coming forward for Blake. And one of them is Jenny Slate and the other one is probably Isabel Ferrer. Well, turns out there isn't. Anyway, so they're talking about how Jenny was already then groomed by Blake Lively to support her. I don't know what exactly she was complaining about to HR, if there's talking about that one complaint that was reported on in the Hollywood Reporter when she got a more expensive apartment in New York because she's a mother and she found that very inappropriate, or whatever it is. Anyways, that's what they talk about in this thread. There's so many other threads that are completely irrelevant to the case. What I think they're trying to do here is convince people, like, look at all the evidence. We're just going to dump like millions of texts and emails out there so people just can't even read through it all because it's too tiring. And it looks like there was so much going on behind the scenes that hasn't come out yet. But in reality, there's nothing new in here. And again, all it proves is that Justin Baldoni was defending himself against Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. Also, there's a little good news coming from Judge Lyman, who finally realized all the doxing that's been going on his docket. So Blake Lively's team have continuously doxed people, released their information publicly, their email address, their phone numbers, their home addresses, everything without redacting it. They've been told off a couple of times, and they had like this back and forth with Paris Hilton about it, where they showed his children because they had to show people the background of who Paris Hilton is. So they took screenshots from his Instagram and from his website showing his children. And when Perez Hilton called them out about it, Blake Lively wrote a letter back to the judge saying, these are his own pictures that he posted, so we should be able to do it, without even saying why. Why did pictures of Paris Hilton's kids have to be in that docket? What does that have to do with anything about Blake Lively's case here? Remember, this is a case about her fighting the world because she's not popular. So why does she need pictures of Paris Hilton's children in the docket? Anyways, the judge agreed. So they had to refile a lot of these documents now, and they have to black out the information. So finally, the judge is doing something about it. So now when you see the documents that they refiled, there's no more pictures of Paris Hilton's children. There is also another letter from a non-party, someone that has nothing to do with this, who's a civilian, who's also complaining to the judge about all this private information that's slipping through Blake Lively's team and being filed in the docket unretracted. Yes, so finally, the judge has opened his eyes to see what's going on. Maybe he can open his eyes to other things that's been going on as well that most of us find very unfair. Let's see what happens this week, you guys. This is just so crazy. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I'll keep you posted on everything that happens, I promise you. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss an episode of Flawsome Talk. And I'll see you in my next one. Bye.
Yeah, we flawsome talk.